I think anybody who gets into watch collecting eventually starts to get this idea of, what if I could design my own watch? What would that be like? And so recently I've sort of been going through in my mind what my ideal watch would be if I was going to make something that was interesting, that, that I wanted, that met functionality that I needed, that wasn't really on the market. And I kind of came up with this idea of doing a watch that had dual crowns, that could have an inner rotating bezel, but instead of it being a dive watch, it would be a field watch. And instead of having a timing bezel, it would have a 12-hour bezel so that you could track a second time zone or also use it for timing. And I thought that would be really cool because I hadn't seen anything else like that. And then I got an email from a guy in Poland who said, hey, I just started my own watch brand, and he sent me a picture, and it was basically the same watch that I had been thinking of trying to figure out how to make myself. Now, on the specifics of the design, he definitely went in a very interesting way and did some things that I had never thought of, but the basics were kind of similar to what I was thinking, so I was very excited to get in and check it out and see how the watch looked and performed. So let's take a look at the Vespera from Nadir Watches. Hey guys, welcome back to Just the Watch. My name's Dave. I live in Japan and I love to collect affordable watches. And again, this is one that I'm excited to look at because it really meets all of the functionality that I look for in a watch. I'm not a huge fan of dive watches. I much prefer field watches, but I love the functionality of a bezel. And I think those whole dual crown designs with inner rotating bezels are such a neat feature. And it's rare to see that on a field watch. And so just on that level, it's cool to see a watch that has that kind of functionality. But then Nadir, in addition to that, has taken that idea and put it into a very interesting watch with some very beautiful design choices. This is also a very high quality watch. It's built around the Miyota 9015 automatic movement, which is probably my favorite movement to see in a watch in the $500 price range. It's a little bit less expensive than the Swiss automatic movements, and that allows the manufacturers to put a little bit more money into the case design and the other features of the watch. In this case, you're getting a sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance, screw down crown, a very interesting case design, and a beautiful finish. Now, Nadir did send me this watch for free, which is why you saw the paid promotions flag at the beginning of this video. However, other than the watch itself, I did not receive any additional compensation, nor did Nadir have any control over the content of this review. The Vespera immediately jumps out at you because of its interesting design. This is a field watch, but it's not your standard military-inspired field watch that you've seen done over and over again by dozens of different brands. The case has an interesting silhouette that seems to take some inspiration from the Patek Philippe Nautilus with these little wings that jut out on the sides of it. But then you notice on the right side of the case that there's not one but two crowns, which really shakes up that silhouette. And when you turn your attention to the circular dial, you'll immediately see what that second crown is for, in that the Wristshot is actually an inner rotating bezel. And I think Nadir has made an inspired choice by going with a 12-hour inner rotating bezel. The primary function of a 12-hour bezel like this is to allow you to track a second time zone. And as much as I love GMT watches, I really do think that a 12-hour bezel actually does for me a better, more practical job of allowing you to read the time in two different time zones. It's quicker to read at a glance, and it also allows you to check the time in the future, which is amazing if you need to set appointments with people in different time zones. But this 12-hour bezel also has individual minute markers on it, which makes it completely usable as a timing bezel as well. So that makes this an incredibly functional and practical timepiece. When you combine the ability to track a second time zone, the ability to time things, and then the fact that this is also a watch that has a date, you're getting all of the functions on a watch that I personally need on a daily basis. And they've implemented all of this in a good-looking, unique, original design that is rugged thanks to its 100 meters of water resistance, screw-down crown, and sapphire crystal, as well as being very reliable thanks to the Miyota 9015 automatic movement. Let's shift gears and talk about the design choices here because there's a lot that I really like. Take the dial design, for instance, which is very striking. They've gone with large Arabic numerals at the cardinal points of 12, 6, and 9, which is very classic for watch design. But they've done a very interesting thing at 3 o'clock with the date implementation in that they've put a solid bar of color, which does vary depending on your dial choice. And on the blue dial version here, it's a very nice crisp white bar on the dial that I think gives it almost like this racing stripe kind of feel to it, which is a really cool, unique touch. So often a date detracts from the design of a watch, and it's such a struggle for watch designers to find a way to implement the date in a non-distracting way. But Nadir decided to just create this segment of the dial that's going to house the date as well as the text Vespera automatic and make that a focal point of the design of the watch dial. And I think it really works well. And in addition to that bar, there's a lot of very intricate design work going on here on the dial, maybe a little bit too much. You've got these quirky connected minute markings in between the hour markers that kind of look like prongs or forks. And then at the very edge of the dial where it meets the bezel, there's a series of perforations that line up with those minute markings. I'm not sure if there's a functional reason for that, but it does kind of help you to line up that inner rotating bezel if you want to match it up with the minute markings precisely. It does add a layer of visual interest, but I'm not sure if it actually makes the design better or not. What I do really like is the handset. They've taken a page out of Seiko's playbook by creating a handset that has both brushed and polished surfaces. There's a bevel down the center of each hand, and each side of that bevel is finished in a different way. This looks great, and it also really aids in legibility, as in low light conditions, you're definitely going to find some light is going to reflect off those hands in a way that is visible. And the hands are cut out very sharply. This is a very high quality part of the watch and one of the more eye-catching parts on the dial. And speaking of legibility, the dial is also lumed, with the hands and printed hour markers both glowing in a cool blue BGW9 formula. Now, for a field watch, this is kind of an average level of lume. It's nowhere near as bright as a good dive watch, but it's definitely going to give you enough after dark performance to allow you to read the watch for a good length of time after dark. In this case, it came out with a score of 5 on my J-score test, which puts it way ahead of the likes of Hamilton, who are often kind of viewed as the standard for field watches in this price range. But by the same token, there are a lot of other micro brands in this price range that are doing much more powerful lume than this. So after dark performance here is just adequate. Going back to the case of the watch, this is one of the most interesting visual features of it as well. Even though the dial of the watch is round, those little wings on the side of the case give it a very unique shape. It adds a little bit of surface area to the watch, and Nadir has taken the opportunity of adding some very interesting and beautiful finish work because of that. You're getting primarily brushed surfaces, but polished edges along almost every aspect of the watch, including the bezel and the sides of the case and lugs. That finish work, combined with the very solid feeling of the case, really gives off an air of quality to the watch. On the wrist, the watch is also very comfortable, in large part due to the excellent leather strap that has been included with it. It's a beautiful, high-quality leather that has a very supple feel to it, with excellent finishing to the hardware and great stitching throughout. But if you do want to change the strap out, the watch accommodates standard 20mm straps, and the included strap features quick-release spring bars, making it very easy for you to do so if you would like. This watch measures 42mm across, but actually wears a little bit smaller than that. That 42mm includes those wings on either side of the case. The dial of the watch is more similar to what you would find on a 40mm watch. And I feel like that combination kind of plays some tricks on your eyes, as the watch doesn't really look either too big or too small. I think it looks just perfect on my 7.5-inch wrist. Now that said, this watch does have a very substantial feel to it. So if you're looking for a really slim field watch that's going to completely disappear on your wrist, this is not that. At 12mm thick and 42mm across, there's still a significant amount of metal in this case, but it's still a lot more unobtrusive than most dive watches this size. All in all, this is a very unique design with a great array of features, and the quality of the finishing and build is outstanding as well, all of which makes it well worth the $500 asking price. But I did have two minor complaints about the watch. The first is cosmetic. I wasn't a big fan of the silver embossed Nadir logo at 12 o'clock. The font is very plain, and those embossed silver letters are kind of difficult to read in low lighting, especially compared to the very crisp, high contrast white markings on the rest of the watch. I didn't have as much a problem with the graphic logo at 6 o'clock. That I thought looked fine, but the 12 o'clock one just kind of came across a little bit cheap looking to me. The other problem I had was with the functionality of the second crown. It is very smooth to operate and works well. However, it is a little bit difficult to get your finger on. it's kind of tucked into a corner between the lugs and that little wing coming out of the side of the case, which makes it almost impossible to access while it's on the wrist. And even when you take it off the wrist to change it, it's still kind of difficult to actuate. The benefit here is that it's very unlikely for it to get accidentally knocked out of place or for that bezel to move when you don't want it to, which is very nice. And if you're primarily going to be using this for setting a second time zone, that's probably a good thing because you can just move it to that second time zone and leave it there and it'll just stay there. But if you plan on using it a lot, like if you want to use it as a timing bezel or for other things, then it might get a little bit annoying. Other than those two minor complaints, I really liked this watch. It is a very unique watch with a unique shape and a unique look to it. So some people are going to be a lot more drawn to it than others. But I love to see micro brands doing good, unique designs like this. All right, that's going to wrap up the review for today. If you're interested in getting your hands on this watch, I'll leave a link to Nadir's website down below. Like I said, the price is listed at around $500 US, but I believe that includes the European VAT tax. So if you're ordering from outside of the EU, it will probably be cheaper, but then you might have to pay import duties on whatever country you order from. So keep that in mind. Also, let me know what you think of the design of this watch. This is a very interesting one. I kind of like it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And if you're interested in getting a watch themed t-shirt like this one, you can check it out on my website at justthewatch.com. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.